He says, I'm 26 on step 7. What should I do with my monthly vested RSUs? The total vested amount is about 60% of my after-tax portfolio.
Oh, wow.
Should I diversify them? And if so, how should I go about doing that?
So again, a quick education for those of you who don't know. A lot of folks, not only is their compensation received in terms of their salary or their monthly paycheck, but a lot of workers, especially if you work for like a publicly traded company, some portion of your compensation might come from employer incentives like restricted stock units, which means they grant you some stock ownership that then vests over a certain time period, or you might have access to options, whether that be incentive stock options or non-qualified stock options, or you might even have like an employer stock purchase plan where you can buy your employer stock at a discount. All of these are wonderful benefits that are worth taking advantage of, but there are nuances because they are all a little unique. Specifically with RSUs, the question is, hey, every month I vest, and when I vest, it's taxable on that day. So that amount that vests shows up in my W-2 at the end of the year when I go to file taxes. How do I manage that? And Brian, with Scanning Potato having 60% of their after-tax money in their employer stock, is that okay, or is that potentially a risky situation that doesn't realize?
You know the answer, and that's why I think you're pushing it over to me, is because I've dealt with executives back in Atlanta for a big tech company, Lucent Technologies, that they all were worth a fortune on paper. I mean, I could also called out WorldCom or some of the other big success stories of the past that I watched just blow up in spectacular fashion. And you thought these things were going to be around forever. And so that's why you always need to be very aware that you have two things tied up when you have all your eggs in that employer basket, is that you've got your human capital, meaning that's your time that you're trading for. You're giving your time for the wages and all the other things they're paying you for. But then you've also got your investment capital. And we like to see some separation in those two things so that you actually, if one goes down, the other one is there to pick it up. And that's what, because even entrepreneurs, I'm always telling them, hey, make sure you're building assets and resources outside of your ventures so that you actually have the money to do what you want, when you want, how you want. That's where financial independence is built. Right. Now, it's hard. I get it, because a lot of you guys work for these big Fortune 500 companies that are high flyers. And you're making even better sometimes than the S&P 500 is historically. And you're like, well, this is, why would I ever want to get out of this? Yeah. But I'm telling you, there is a point. You have to balance that, thinking about the human capital, thinking about the investment capital, thinking about where the market is going, so that you do create a strategic plan to divest out of those things in a strategic way. What I love about doing it in a strategic way is it takes the emotions out of the process. Now you don't have to get emotionally attached to this stock. You can actually say, hey, I'm going to create a system to where every year, as these RSUs vest and I have to pay the compensation, some of these older ones, now I'm going to liquidate them so I can turn them into diversified holdings that now will create financial independence for me. And that also, protects you from some of the political issues at work and so forth, because nobody can get mad at you for having a systematic process to build financial security for you and your family outside of the company you work for.
And one thing that we remind people of is, you're thinking in terms of the vested RSUs. You also have to keep in mind the unvested RSUs that you still have exposure to, because most folks, at least in our experience, are on what we call the incentive treadmill, that every month or every quarter or every year, those shares are being replaced through time. So even if you're selling some off as they vest, it's likely you're being granted more on the backside. So you are, yes, taking some of the chips off the table, but those chips are also being replenished. So if you do work for a company, you believe in what the company is doing, and you think the company is going to do incredible things, you still have exposure to the equity in that company through your unvested or future granted incentives, even if you're selling them off now. So be careful. We know that when it comes to investing, when it comes to allocation, when it comes to concentration, pigs get fat, but hogs get slaughtered.